I'll never forget the way my knees buckled when I overheard it, that hushed, venom-laced conversation that changed my life forever. I was standing just outside the hallway bathroom during my baby shower, one hand still resting on my belly, when the voices of my husband and my mother-in-law drifted toward me. At first, I thought they were whispering about nursery colors or maybe some silly family tradition. But then, those words, those horrific words. My mother-in-law pressed him, her tone urgent. "You need to tell her before the twins are born. Otherwise, Kayla won't get her baby in time for her birthday." Her baby. She wasn't talking about dolls. She wasn't talking about a puppy. She was talking about one of my twins, my children, my flesh and blood, my flesh. My husband, the man who swore to protect me and stand by me, whispered back that he was working on it, as if this was just a complicated business deal and not the literal trafficking of my child. My chest tightened. The world blurred. Their words felt like knives carving straight through my sanity. I remember gripping the doorknob, every muscle in my body screaming to burst in, to scream, to claw their faces with the rage that boiled inside me. But I froze. Because one thing became terrifyingly clear in that moment. I wasn't safe. Not with him, not with them, not with any of them. So I made a decision right there in that hallway. My husband would never see it coming, and his precious mother would choke on her own schemes. They thought they could decide the fate of my children without me? Oh, they had no idea who they were dealing with. But before I get into how I unraveled their twisted little plan, let me take you back. Back to where it all began. Because this storm didn't appear overnight. It had been brewing for years, hidden under smiles, fake apologies, and daggers behind my back. And if you think the betrayal ends with that one conversation, buckle up. When people first meet me, they usually assume I had a normal childhood. Loving parents, family dinners, birthday parties with balloons and cake. Truth is, my childhood was anything but. My parents were lost in their own addictions, chasing highs instead of raising me. If I wanted food, I earned it. If I wanted shelter, I hustled for it. By the time I hit college, I'd cut them off completely and learned to survive on my own. I thought I had left all that pain behind. And then came Mike. Mike was like this night in a perfectly pressed shirt, swooping in with kindness I wasn't used to. He'd notice the smallest things, like when my old blouse had tiny holes in it, and fix them quietly, buying me a new shirt so no one would laugh. He'd drive an hour out of his way just to pick me up on rainy days, never making a big deal out of it. And when he found out I skipped meals sometimes, not because I was dieting, but because eating 3 times a day had never been a guarantee growing up, he started bringing me lunch. Every single day. How do you not fall for a man like that? He became my safe place, my best friend, my partner. And when he proposed, I thought, finally, my life is turning around. But here's the thing about marrying someone. You're not just marrying them. You're marrying their family. And Mike's family? Let's just say if entitlement was an Olympic sport, they'd be breaking world records. Mike grew up in luxury, summer cruises, private schools. A family so wealthy they wondered out loud why he even bothered working. His father was cold but polite, eventually warming up to me. But his mother? From the very first handshake she refused to give, I knew she despised me. And his sister, Kayla? She looked me up and down like I was a pair of knockoff shoes she'd never be caught dead wearing. That first dinner with them still plays in my head. I sat there, trying to be polite, complimenting their art, their decor, their food. His mother scoffed at everything I said, like my opinion was dirt under her designer heels. At one point, Kayla even pulled out photos of one of Mike's exes, parading bikini shots in front of him while I sat right there. She laughed, told him he could always slide into her DMs again because she still has a soft spot for you. I swear if daggers could shoot from my eyes, she would have been pinned to the wall. Mike squeezed my hand under the table, silently begging me not to cause a scene. That was the first of many times I'd learn. In his family, I was the intruder, the outsider, the poor girl who didn't belong. Over the years, the insults piled up. They mocked my background, my weight, my clothes, even the way I spoke. Kayla once texted me that she wanted to kill me because I was keeping her brother away from her, like I was some villain stealing him. His mother called me a fat pig when I gained a few pounds right in front of guests. No matter what I did, I was never good enough for them. Eventually, I stopped trying, stopped going to dinners, stopped answering their messages. My mental health finally started to heal. Mike said he understood, but his family never let it go. To them, I wasn't a wife. I was a threat. And yet, despite everything, Mike and I built our life together. We laughed, we dreamed, we planned. Which is why when I found out I was pregnant, with twins no less, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would finally change. But I should have known better. For people like his mother and Kayla, life isn't about love or family. It's about possession, about control. And when they saw my pregnancy, they didn't see babies, they saw an opportunity. Pregnancy is supposed to be this magical time, right? People pampering you, asking how you're feeling, rubbing your belly like it's a lucky charm. But in my case, it was more like stepping into a battlefield. The moment Mike's family found out we were having twins, they didn't congratulate me. They practically licked their lips like wolves circling fresh prey. At first, it was little comments that I brushed off. His mom would say things like, "Carrying twins is going to be so hard for you. Maybe it's too much for someone like you. Maybe Kayla should help." She'd glance at Kayla like they shared some secret joke, while Kayla smiled smugly. Then came the baby shower. I wanted it simple. Friends, laughter, some finger food. But his mother hijacked the whole thing, turning it into a full-blown society event with a guest list longer than my arm. She insisted on picking the decorations, the food, even the music. She claimed it was her right as the grandmother. And guess what the theme was? Butterflies. Sounds harmless, right? Except on every table, every cake, every stupid little party favor, there were 2 butterflies, one large and one small. Not a pair of equal twins. Always one bigger, one smaller. Symbolic, like she was already choosing which baby mattered more. I tried to laugh it off, but then Kayla showed up in a custom-made maternity dress, like she was the one pregnant. She cradled her flat stomach and kept telling people, "Oh, someday soon I'll be blessed too." And her mother chimed in with, "Don't worry, sweetheart, your time is coming sooner than you think." The way they glanced at me when they said it made my skin crawl. Even Mike changed. The man who once held me through my darkest night started snapping at me for being too sensitive whenever I pushed back. When I told him his family's jokes weren't funny, he'd say, "They're just excited. Don't overreact." But deep down, I knew something was off. I'd catch him whispering on the phone late at night, his tone low and urgent. Whenever I walked into the room, he'd hang up instantly, and when I asked who it was, he'd mutter, "Just work," but his eyes avoided mine. I remember one night in particular, me sitting on the couch rubbing my swollen ankles, asking if he could grab me some water. He sighed dramatically, like I'd asked him to move a mountain, then snapped, "You act like you're the only woman who's ever been pregnant." That was the first time I saw a glimpse of the man behind the mask, and it terrified me. Still, I tried to convince myself I was just hormonal, just paranoid. After all, wasn't this the same man who once fed me when I had nothing? The man who promised forever? But deep in my gut, a storm was building, and soon it would break in the ugliest way possible. The night everything shattered didn't start like some dramatic movie scene. There was no thunderstorm, no eerie soundtrack. It was just Tuesday. I was 7 months pregnant, ankles swollen like balloons, and Mike said he was working late again. But something in me refused to stay home. Call it intuition, call it survival instinct. I grabbed my keys and drove to his office, telling myself I'd surprise him with dinner. Only, when I pulled into the parking lot, his car wasn't there. My chest tightened. I called him. No answer. Texted. Delivered, but no reply. And then, as I was about to head home, I noticed a message pop up on our shared tablet back at the house. I'd left it on the counter, still logged into his account, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a text from Kayla. "Don't forget to bring the vitamins tomorrow. Mom says it's important we stay on schedule if I'm going to stay healthy for the twins." My twins. My babies. I swear, the room spun. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My husband wasn't just cheating on me. He wasn't just lying to me. He and his family were plotting to rip my children away from me and hand them to Kayla like some twisted gift. I scrolled through the messages with shaking hands. There were months of them. Discussions about my diet, my medical appointments, even details about what nursery theme they wanted for their babies. Kayla was sending him baby name ideas. His mother was pushing adoption papers, ones they planned to spring on me when I was too emotional to refuse. And the worst part? Mike, the man who once saved me from hunger, was right there in the middle of it, encouraging them, calling Kayla the real mother. I remember dropping the tablet on the floor. It cracked, but I didn't care. My heart felt like it had cracked too. When he came home that night, I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just sat there at the kitchen table, the broken tablet between us. He walked in, saw it, and froze. His face turned pale like all the blood drained out of him at once. "Sit," I told him. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was calm, steady, ice cold, and for the first time, he looked scared of me. The next morning, I didn't wake up as the same woman. Something inside me had snapped, like a rope that had been pulled too tight for too long. I packed a bag, just the essentials, a few clothes, my prenatal vitamins, the ultrasound pictures. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand right where he'd see it. I didn't wait for Mike to wake up. I didn't care if his mother or sister came banging on the door. I just left. My first stop was a friend's house. Emily, the kind of friend you don't realize is family until life burns everything else down. When she opened the door and saw my face, swollen from crying, she didn't ask questions. She just wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You're safe now." But safety wasn't enough. I had 2 lives inside me depending on me, and if Mike and his family were willing to plot behind my back, who knew what they'd do once the babies were born? So I lawyered up. It wasn't easy. Money was tight, stress was high, and my body was exhausted. But I walked into that attorney's office with fire in my eyes. I laid it all out. The texts, the manipulation, the months of deceit. And you know what he said? He said, "They don't have a leg to stand on. You protect those babies, and I'll protect you." That became my mantra: protect those babies, protect myself. The weeks that followed were brutal. Mike blew up my phone with messages, some begging, some furious. His mother left voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart. Kayla even showed up at Emily's doorstep once, sobbing about how she deserved to be a mother too. I'll never forget the way Emily stepped in front of me, squaring her shoulders like a guard dog, and said, "You need to leave. Now." That moment, that's when I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I started therapy. I leaned on support groups for single mothers. I pieced together a new life, one day at a time. It wasn't glamorous, just survival. Frozen dinners, secondhand baby clothes, nights spent crying quietly so the babies wouldn't feel my stress. But through it all, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Strength, the kind that doesn't roar but whispers, "Keep going." And when the twins finally arrived, screaming, tiny, perfect, I knew I'd won. They were mine. No one could take them from me. Not Mike, not his mother, not Kayla. Of course, the story doesn't end there, because karma has a funny way of cleaning up what you can't. And let me tell you, karma came knocking on their door sooner than anyone expected. It didn't take long for the cracks in their little scheme to show. You see, people like Mike, his mother, and Kayla, they thrive in the dark. Lies, manipulation, whispers behind closed doors. But once the truth comes into the light, they crumble. The custody hearings were brutal. Mike tried to paint me as unstable, too emotional to make decisions. His mother sat there with her pearls clutched like she was the victim. And Kayla, she actually testified, saying she had been promised one of my children as a birthday gift. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge leaned back, eyes wide, like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. My lawyer didn't even need to push. He just let Kayla dig her own grave, word by word. By the end of it, I was granted full custody. Mike got limited visitation supervised because the judge said, and I'll never forget this, anyone willing to barter away a child like property doesn't deserve unsupervised access. His mother left the courtroom red-faced, muttering about ungrateful daughters-in-law. And Kayla, she stormed out in tears, wailing about how unfair life was to her. But karma wasn't finished. Mike's job found out about the scandal. Apparently one of his co-workers had been subpoenaed for messages, and word spread fast. Within weeks, he was let go. Turns out companies don't like being associated with men who try to traffic their own children. As for Kayla, her relationship with her boyfriend collapsed. He wanted nothing to do with a woman who openly admitted in court to trying to steal her brother-in-law's kids. She went from posting curated Instagram photos about her perfect family life to deactivating her account entirely. And the cherry on top? His mother had been bragging in her church about the beautiful babies that would soon be raised by Kayla. When the truth came out, her reputation shattered. Suddenly, the woman who thought she was queen of her little community couldn't even get invited to bake sales. Meanwhile, I was at home with my twins, exhausted but happy, watching the empire they built on lies collapse one brick at a time. And here's the thing, I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't seek revenge, didn't plot their downfall. All I did was tell the truth and protect my babies. The rest, karma handled it better than I ever could. When I look back now, it feels like I'm remembering someone else's life, like I was just a bystander watching a woman stumble through heartbreak, betrayal, and fear. But then I remember the sleepless nights, the swollen ankles, the sound of 2 tiny heartbeats on a monitor. That was me. I lived it. And I survived. Mike, his mother Kayla, they thought they could play God with my children, treating them like pawns in some twisted game. But children aren't bargaining chips. They're not trophies to hand out because life didn't go your way. They're human souls deserving of love, protection, and choice. And it was my job, my privilege, to make sure they never forgot that. I won't lie. Sometimes the bitterness creeps in. Sometimes I wonder how different things might have been if I'd married someone who valued me, who valued us. But then I see my twins, messy-haired, giggling, covered in peanut butter at the breakfast table, and I realize I didn't lose. I won. I won freedom from a family that saw me as an obstacle, not a partner. I won the strength to rebuild my life brick by brick. And most importantly, I won the right to be the mother my children need. Here's the truth. Life will always throw people like Mike and his family our way. Entitled, manipulative, selfish. People who think they can take what isn't theirs and walk away smiling. But life also has a way of balancing the scales. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt cornered, betrayed, or outnumbered, hear me when I say this. You're stronger than you think. Protect what matters. Stand tall even when your knees shake. Because the moment you choose yourself, really choose yourself, the rest has no choice but to fall into place. And that's the kind of justice no court, no person, no betrayal can ever take away.